draw a standard ECG and explain the different segments in it. So students, ECG stands for electrocardiogram. It is a graphical representation of the cardiac cycle produced by an electrograph. So here, this electrocardiograph includes 5 waves, P, Q, R, S and T. So each wave represents the functioning of the cardiac cycle. So it represents how the SA node produces electrical impulses, how they are transported to the different chambers, and on receiving these electrical impulses, how the chambers contract and relax. So the status of the cardiac cycle will be represented in the form of a graph, and this graph is represented as electrocardiogram. Now it includes 5 waves, P, Q, R, S and T. So this is a graph. Here we can see P, Q, R, S and T. So these wave represents the functioning of the cardiac cycle. So here the first thing, that is PRT, which is present above the baseline. Now this is considered as the baseline. The blue color dot is considered as baseline. Now P, R and T, they are present above the baseline. So it is represented as positive waves. Now if you see Q, S, they are present below the baseline. So it is considered as negative waves. So here Q and S are below the baseline, they are negative waves. P, R, T are above the baseline, they are positive waves. Now P wave is of atrial origin. So P wave indicates the depolarization of the atria. So it is of atrial origin. Q, R, S and T. Now the remaining Q, R, S and T, it indicates it is related to the ventricles. So whether the ventricles contract or relax. So the QRST represents the contraction and relaxation of ventricles. So we call them as ventricular origin. So let's consider each one in detail. Now first one is P wave. So here we can see this yellow color form represents P wave. Now this P wave indicates the signal produced by the SA node. So here is the SA node. Now once the SA node produces the signal, so the P wave indicates that SA node is producing the signal and this signal spreads to the atria. So here we can see it is spreading to the upper chambers, that is auricles, right auricles and left auricles. So once it spreads to the upper chamber, it causes the upper chambers to depolarize. That means it causes them to contract, and this contraction is represented by the PQ wave. So the PQ wave represents the atrial contraction, and similarly it also represents that the signals are delayed at the AV node. So here the SA node produces a signal, so it has been transported to the atria. At the same time, some of the signal will be received by the AV node and it will hold there. So it is not passing this signal to the ventricles until the atria complete its contraction. So the PQ node also represents the signals are delayed at the AV node, and PQ also represents it is the contraction phase of the atria. The next part, that is QR wave. So here we can see this is the QR. So this QR wave is preceded by the ventricular contraction. So here it represents that the impulse of contraction from AV node to the wall of ventricles. So it is the spread of impulses. From here the signal, the AV node transfers the impulses to the walls of the ventricles. So the QR wave represents the spread of impulses from the AV node to the walls of the ventricles. So this leads to the ventricular depolarization. The complete QRS wave says that the ventricles are contracting. So these bundle of his fibers brings the electrical impulses first to the apex of the heart and then to the main body of the heart and finally to the base. So it leads to the depolarization of ventricle. So depolarization means contraction. So the RS wave represents ventricular contraction, and this is about 0.3 seconds. Now the remaining ST segment, it represents ventricular relaxation. So soon after it contracts, the ventricles relax, and this is about 0.4 seconds, and this relaxation is represented by the ST wave. So during the ventricular relaxation, the ventricles turn to its normal position. So it comes back to its normal state, and the T wave represents the complete relaxation of the ventricle. So it is of ventricular origin. So here P, Q, R, S and T. So P represents for the impulses originated by the SA node and spread to the atria. The PQ wave represents the contraction of the atria. QR represents information, the impulses passes to the ventricles. RS represents the contraction of the ventricles. ST represents the relaxation, and the T wave completely represents the relaxation of the ventricles. So these are the different segments of the electrocardiogram.